Hello everyone, once again you are welcome to my channel, MacD Literature Made Simple. And as I always start in my introduction to my lessons, the purpose of this channel is to 1. Make literature appealing to students and other lovers of the subject, and 2. Is to disabuse the mindset that literature is a very difficult subject. So we have been embarking on this journey together. I always prefer to use we because I am only a leader leading a group of interesting, intelligent, and inquisitive people who know more but still wants to learn more. As the saying goes, the more I learn, the more I know how little I know. It's a good paradox, by the way. So the more we keep discovering, the more we realize the need to discover more. And the more we keep discovering more, the more we realize that we know less. Therefore, we need to learn more. And as humans, you can never stop learning. Like I promised in our last lesson, today's lesson will be based on understanding characterization. So basically, I might be doing two different things about characterization. One today is to expose you to what characterization is all about. In one of the lessons, I defined characterization to you, but I just gave a definition. Today I want to go a step ahead or a step further by giving you a deeper understanding of what characterization is all about. So if you look on the screen, I say characterization is how writers develop characters in stories. So characterization reveals the personality of the characters, it reveals their motives and growth. It helps, like mastering this skill helps readers connect with characters and understand their journey. So one very interesting thing that I want you to bear in mind is that you cannot appreciate a text properly if you do not grasp a deeper understanding of what characterization is all about. Because the motive, the actions, the inactions, the reactions of characters in a story is all embedded in what we call characterization. Now, we have different types of characterizations, or we have different approaches through which writers, when I say writers, I mean novelists, dramatists, sometimes poets, because we have narrative poems that uses characters. So sometimes poets, they have a way they reveal their characters to their audience. Some of them do it in a direct manner by telling you exactly the characteristics of the character, by giving you the exact information about whom the character is, what the character plans to do, how the character is going to go about it. But some do not do it directly, they do it indirectly, and that is the tricky one, even though that's the one I enjoy a lot myself. I enjoy that very much because it gives me the opportunity to think deeper and appreciate the text very well, which helps in better understanding of the text. So let's look at the two ways that characterization is done. One, we have the direct characterization, and two, we have the indirect characterization. When we talk about direct characterization, the author tells us what a character is like. Straightforward. You know this character is selfish because the author says it. This character is arrogant. This character is pessimistic. This character is optimistic. You get to know it directly. So I have an example there. She was kind and generous. So a character developed in a story put up a behavior or an action or a reaction. Then the writer will tell you that this character is or was kind and generous. So you know that this is a kind character and this is a generous character or both. Now the indirect characterization is where it gets interesting, like I mentioned earlier. With indirect characterization, the author shows us through the speech of the characters, what they say, their thoughts. Sometimes through, especially in drama, through soliloquy, we get to know about their thought processes. So through their thoughts, through the effect on others or their effect on others, how their actions and inactions impact the lives of other characters, through their actions and looks, sometimes their appearance, the description given to the appearance helps you to know the kind of character the character is. Once you get to know this from your own appreciation of the text, that is, you are not told directly by the writer, we call it indirect characterization. Now, how do you do indirect characterization? So let's look at the direct one first. So a direct characterization, like I mentioned earlier, the author directly describes the character's trait, the character's qualities, the character's personalities. So example, she was kind and generous. Readers immediately know the character's qualities. So the writer gives you the qualities. You don't need to do any form of thinking. The character or the writer does the thinking for you. So all you have to do is to just read and comprehend whatever the writer says, and you are gone, or you are good to go. So now let's spend a little time on indirect characterization. Like I said, they show you the traits through their actions and words, and you have to decipher it. You have to come out with it. You have to unearth it or unravel the traits yourself. Now, the method that we are going to use to identify or to understand characterization, I mean the indirect characterization, is the STILL method. STILL is an abbreviation, it's an acronym that stands for S for speech. You get to know about characters through their speech, what they say. T for thought. You get to know about characters through their thought processes, what they think about. 3. Effect. How their actions impact others, how their actions affect others. Actions. The actions that affect others or how they relate with others. Their actions is the A, and the L is look, appearance. A very important aspect of characterization that a lot of people do not consider as important as I do is looks. In other words, appearance. The difference between a negative or a bad character and a good character can easily be gotten from just the writer description of appearance. Usually when you read a dramatic text, the setting, the playwright describes the setting. Sometimes before they introduce characters to you, they give you a little background to the character. They describe the appearance. You can, for example, a character wearing an expensive jewelry, wearing very expensive clothing and shoes already tells you the character is rich, the character is classy, or the character is dubious, get illegal ways, tricky ways of getting money from people to enrich himself or herself. So we are going to use the STILL method. And what I'll do is that I'll try to give some one or two examples. That's what I did in the slide. So, but I really want to take you through the background picture. You can see a picture of the picture of a text on the background. Then to the right hand corner, you see a magnifying glass. So this is basically what indirect characterization is all about. Now, when I say basically what indirect characterization is all about, what I mean is that you read a text, you do not get the direct qualities or the direct character, everything about the character, because the writer will not tell you. You need to think deep, just like the way the magnifying glass will enlarge the text. So your form of enlarging the text is to break the text down and try to appreciate every component of the text to be able to get, using the STILL method, speech, thought, effect, action, and looks, to get to understand your character or your characters very well. So I said readers infer traits from behavior and dialogue. So using the STILL method, you infer the trait, like the traits from the character or the description given to the characters. So let's start with the first one, speech. So an example, how to infer or how to identify the traits, how to understand your characters using the speech, the STILL method or the STILL acronym. First one, a speech is example. I don't care what happens. It's not my problem, quote and unquote. He mattered, avoiding eye contact. Assuming you read this in a text, assuming you read this from a text, how do you use this as the speech from the character to get to understand the character? Now, this tells you that this character is, he doesn't care about people. He's apathetic. He's avoidant or detached. He is self-centered. All he thinks about himself. He said it. I don't care about what happens. It's not my problem. He or she only thinks about himself or herself. So already you are identifying trait of apathetic, of avoidance, or of being detached from what the character said. The next one is the thought. So the character thinking out loud, and you hear she knew she should apologize, but her pride wouldn't let her. Here we are looking at someone who is proud or who is stubborn. Now, these traits I am identifying are not exclusive. They not being exclusive here simply means that all of us will not read this and identify the same traits. That is what makes literature a subjective subject and very interesting subject. So reading this, I came out with the trait proudness, stubbornness. Somebody can talk about arrogance. Somebody can talk about a character, because somebody is saying that she knew she was she should apologize, sorry, but her pride wouldn't let her. Realization of being wrong, but refusal to accept that I am wrong because that will affect my ego. So I will not do it. So from the thought you get to know that. Then the next one, I combine effect, actions, and looks. So effects on others. People avoided sitting next to him in meetings. What trait is that? It could be intimidating. Somebody who is intimidating, people don't usually want to sit next to you. It could be other things. It could be selfishness. It could be that because you are too good and the bosses or leaders like you, people don't want to sit beside you. Like I said, identification of the trait will vary. This is subjective, so it will vary. But I came out with a trait of intimidating. People, because if you look at the picture attached to it at the right top corner of the slide, you realize that even the gesture of the man there talks about someone who is very intimidating, therefore people don't want to be associated with such a person. That's the effect the character has on others, which reveals an inner trait of this character. We also have actions. He stayed after class to clean up. He's a responsible person. Everybody's gone home, but he decided to stay to clean up. That is responsibility or being responsible. But somebody could look at it from a different angle. Well bred, well trained. So again, it's subjective. Looks, her messy hair and torn dress told a story of hardship, trait, struggling, poverty. So the hair is messy, the dress is torn. It could talk about poverty, it could talk about struggling, which is also in the cycle of poverty. So all I'm trying to say is that what you bring out of a text you read is dependent on your appreciation of that text. But everything I'm trying to teach you today is that characterization has to do with everything that embodies a character's way of life or behavior. And it varies from writer to writer. Some writers decide to point out the trait they are communicating to you directly. Other writers embed it in the text and you are to unravel it. So in the way of unraveling it, you can use what I have on the screen now, the still method, which has to do with speech, thought, effect on others, actions, and looks. So use still or the still method to analyze indirect characterization. Look for clues in what characters say, think, do, and how they appear. So by going around this way, it will help you to do a very good characterization. And this brings us to the end of our lesson today. Basically, today I try to give you a little insight into what characterization is all about, from the meaning, how writers present their characters to us, how we can identify or do a good characterization when you read a text. Sometimes you are spoon-fed. It's given to you, so you just have to imbibe it. Such texts are easy to comprehend. Sometimes they are embedded in the text and you have to bring it out or you have to unravel it yourself. It becomes a little bit difficult doing that on your own as a beginner, but if you follow the still method I came up with, it will be a little easier for you to do it. You just have to observe the speech they make or the speeches they make. You have to take care of their thought or think about that, how their actions affect others, their actions itself and inactions or reactions, and their looks. In our next lesson, I will try to target a kind of target audience, that is literature and English students in the senior high schools and the colleges and universities, where we'll do a practical, maybe I'll pick a test and do a practical characterization. Then when I finish, you can use that, read the text and use that as a guide to be able to do characterization. Because I know the senior high school students or the high school students, you are guided by a scheme. The scheme determines what you should write. Then the university students too, I think some of you are also guided by a scheme, even though there's a little laxity of freedom for you than the beginners. Thank you for being part of today's lesson. See you next time. Bye bye.